Galactic High Council Chamber, Centauri Prime. The grand chamber shimmered under the glow of 1,000 suspended luminaries, spheres of cold plasma that floated gently above the heads of the gathered delegates. Representatives from over 200 spacefaring civilizations sat in their gilded seats, forming a great spiral around the central dais. Each seat was assigned by rank, by status, by ancient custom. And yet, one chair sat conspicuously empty. At the northernmost arc, framed by banners of the High Concord, the seat reserved for Earth remained unoccupied. It had remained empty for 7 galactic cycles. Whispers filled the chamber. Murmurs. Unease. They still haven't returned, rasped Ambassador SCI-FI of the Zilnari Confederacy. Why would they? They know they no longer belong among us, hissed Councillor Verdos of the Valithi Syndicate. But we left the seat open by treaty, the young Zelver diplomat countered. In case they should rejoin the council. The humans made their choice long ago, Verdos sneered. And yet, the chair remains. His eyes flicked toward it, not with contempt but with growing unease. The departure of Earth, 7 cycles ago. Few dared to speak openly of the day humanity walked away. At first, the council welcomed Earth. The humans brought with them their wild energy, their technology, their creativity, offering solutions to galactic dilemmas that had stagnated for centuries. They cured plagues that no one could cure. They engineered hyperspace lanes never thought possible. They negotiated peace between warring species who hadn't spoken for generations. And yet, the council grew uneasy. Humanity's rapid rise threatened old power structures. The old species, the ancient families of the council, felt their grip loosening. Quietly they began to isolate Earth. Regulations increased. Trade restrictions tightened. Diplomatic insults were thinly veiled beneath procedural formalities. Humans, ever adaptable, endured for years. But then came the vote. A council resolution, one not of war but of exclusion. Earth would be temporarily suspended from decision-making, for stability. The message was clear. You are useful but you will not lead. Humanity did not rage. They did not fight. They simply left. Without fanfare. Without negotiation. Without threats. The council expected their absence would diminish Earth's influence. Instead, the galaxy watched in silence as humanity withdrew behind their borders, and then vanished entirely. Present day, the growing fear. Councillor Verdos shifted uncomfortably as the annual convocation continued. Each year the chair was left open, a hollow reminder. It was supposed to be symbolic. Now it was haunting. Because in the years since Earth's withdrawal, strange things had begun to happen. Trade routes disrupted, entire fleets vanished in regions once controlled by human merchant guilds. Warlord clans, long enemies of Earth, suddenly collapsed without trace. Rumors of new technologies, beyond the Council's understanding, leaked from deep space traders. And whispers, always whispers, of a shadow empire that was building in the void. None could confirm where Earth was, or what they were becoming. They have grown too quiet, Ambassador SCI-FI murmured under his breath. Verdos clenched his claws. They are a minor species. Their absence proves their weakness. But even he felt the lie in his words. The disappearance of the Zorn Armada. The chamber grew tense as the latest report was delivered. Grand Marshal Tivik of the Zorn Collective rose, his armored form towering. My fleet, 300 warships, entered neutral sectors near the Orion Spur last cycle to expand trade routes. He paused. They are gone. Gasps rippled through the council. Gone? Repeated SCI-FI. No distress signals. No wreckage. No survivors. Only silence. A murmur of panic ignited. Who would dare such an attack? Someone shouted. The answer sat unspoken, heavy in every mind. Or whatever Earth had become. An unexpected arrival. Suddenly the chamber's great doors trembled. Council guards stiffened. The air grew sharp, electric. Every ambassador turned toward the entrance with rising dread. The doors parted. A single figure stepped through. Tall. Human. But unlike any human the council remembered. His uniform was black and silver, bearing no national insignia. His eyes glowed faintly, not with artificial augmentation but with something deeper, something engineered. His presence carried weight as if gravity itself bent slightly around him. He walked calmly to the central dais. His voice was calm, polite. Esteemed members of the council, he spoke. My name is Director Elias Cade. I come on behalf of the Terran Directorate. The chamber froze. Even Verdos found himself breathless. The Terran Directorate? Someone whispered. That does not exist in our records. It didn't, Cade replied, smiling faintly. Until you forced us to create it. The first warning. Zitararke found his voice. Where has Earth been? Cade's gaze swept the room like a blade. Growing, evolving, preparing. For war. Verdos demanded. For survival, Cade corrected. You exiled us from your council. We accepted that judgment. But we also understood that your desire for dominance would not end with our absence. So we adapted. Adapted how? Someone challenged. Cade's expression darkened. We have built where you stagnated. Advanced where you resisted. Explored where you feared to tread. And now, as your old enemies rise beyond your ability to control them, you realize how deeply you underestimated humanity. You took a step closer. We are not here to seek revenge. The council exhaled softly. But understand this. His voice became razor-sharp. If you provoke us again, there will be no council left to rebuild. The chamber trembles. The words were not shouted. They didn't need to be. The truth of them filled every delegate with a cold, nauseating certainty. Humanity had disappeared not because they were defeated, but because they had evolved past the need for the council's approval. They had become something else. The empty chair was no longer a symbol of absence. It was a throne waiting for a species that no longer needed it. And for the first time in centuries, the council trembled. Council High Chamber, Centauri Prime. Director Elias Cade stood unmoving at the center of the spiral chamber, while the stunned assembly tried to compose themselves. No one spoke for several long seconds after his declaration. The weight of his words still rippled across every mind. No threats. No bluster. Just that cold certainty. If you provoke us again, there will be no council left to rebuild. Finally, it was the Valyrian High Speaker Ielvac who broke the silence. His species known for balancing diplomacy and fear. Director Cade, his throat quivered slightly, an involuntary flicker of his facial ridges. We acknowledge that past grievances exist. But surely you do not mean to suggest that Earth would threaten open war against this assembly? Cade's reply was immediate, measured. High Speaker, you misunderstand. He paused, letting the quiet stretch like a vice around every diplomat's chest. We do not threaten war. We prevent it. He looked around the chamber as if surveying children trying to grasp a lesson far beyond their comprehension. You assumed that by forcing us into isolation you removed the danger. You failed to see that you removed your only restraint. The Shadow Empire. The Zorn ambassador, cloaked in ceremonial battle armor, growled. You speak as though your directorate controls what happens beyond our sight. We see no fleets massing. We detect no stations at your borders. We monitor your hyperspace gates. You see what you're permitted to see, Cade answered calmly. That truth stung far deeper than any accusation. Because in truth, the Council had lost sight of Earth. Entire sectors along the Orion Spur, the Perseus Arm, and even parts of the Sagittarius cluster had gone dark. Survey probes lost contact. Trade outposts abandoned. Quiet rumors of strange vessels moving through the void, human vessels that bore no known flags or IFF codes. Unofficially, some called it the Silent Expansion. But none dared accuse Earth publicly. Until now. The Great Archive Incident. Cade continued. 2 cycles ago, your research division dispatched an exploration fleet to retrieve forbidden technology from the ancient vaults of the Kreth Expanse. They hoped to harness power you do not understand. His voice hardened slightly, almost pitying. They never returned. Several counselors shifted nervously. That fleet had vanished without explanation, a scandal kept tightly classified. It was not our doing that destroyed them, Cade added. But we knew what would happen. We watched you violate accords you yourselves passed. We chose not to intervene. He raised his gaze. You have always misunderstood humanity. You think our danger lies in our aggression. It does not. It lies in our capacity to learn what should not be learned. To build what should not exist. To survive what should not be survivable. A chilling demonstration. Counselor Verdos could no longer restrain himself. Empty words, human. You speak as though you are gods among mortals, but we have seen no evidence of these claims. Prove it. Show us what your directorate truly possesses. The council collectively held its breath. Even those who quietly agreed with Verdos dared not say so aloud. Director Cade simply gestured toward the ceiling of the chamber. For the first time in recorded history, the high chamber's energy shields disengaged. The transparent dome exposed the stars above Centauri Prime. And there, hovering far beyond the orbital range, was something none of them had seen on any registry. A vessel. Massive. Silent. Not built for planetary invasion nor simple power projection, but something far worse. Its hull shimmered with adaptive light absorption tech. Its drive cores were unlike any known signature. Weapon arrays bristled along its frame, yet no known energy readings accompanied them. The chamber's AI struggled to categorize it. Unknown class. Unknown designation. Unknown origin. No registry match. Cade's voice was calm. This is the Aegis Eternum. She has been monitoring your council sessions for 11 cycles. Silence. Panic. Absolute horror. Impossible, someone whispered. It never entered hyperspace near our monitored gates. Cade simply smiled. Because it doesn't need to. The price of arrogance. At last, Grand Marshal Tivik spoke, voice heavy with dread. You possess trans-hyperspace drive capabilities? We possess many things, Cade said flatly. Things we developed while you debated procedure and politicked over minor trade disputes. But why reveal it now? Elvac asked, his voice cracking. Cade finally showed a sliver of something behind his eyes, something almost human. Because we prefer peace. But your council grows desperate. He let that accusation settle. The Zorn Armada was not the last foolish attempt to encroach upon our domain. We intercepted 5 covert incursions last cycle alone, armed fleets disguised as survey missions. A murmur of shame rippled through the chamber. You sought to test our defenses, to provoke a response you thought would justify another attempt at control. He stepped closer to the Grand Chamber's heart. We are not your prey. We are not your experiment. We are not your property. The breaking point. Verdos finally snapped. You speak as though Earth rules this galaxy. You do not. There are hundreds of civilizations that could resist you. Could they? Cade asked. And in that instant, countless data streams erupted across every diplomat's personal console. Real-time feeds. Surveillance footage. Military logs. Communications intercepts. Images of quiet uprisings on dozens of council worlds. Leaders being overthrown. Council installations sabotaged from within. Entire fleets turning their weapons on each other, civil wars erupting at critical pressure points. But none of these insurrections had Earth's fingerprints on them. No official involvement. The message was clear. Humanity had learned to collapse its enemies without firing a single shot. A new balance. CRK spoke quietly now, his voice hollow. You have already dismantled us. Cade nodded once. We could have destroyed the council outright. But that is not our way. You left us no place at your table, so we built our own. He looked around the room, scanning every trembling ambassador. You called us impatient children when we joined your council. You were wrong. We simply evolved faster than you ever thought possible. And then came the final blow. We are here today not to threaten, but to offer you terms. The chamber gasped. Terms? Elvac asked. Cade's gaze never wavered. Yes. The Terran Directorate will replace your High Council's authority over interstellar regulation, trade, and conflict mediation. You will retain autonomy on internal matters. You will disband offensive fleets. All military expansion will be reviewed by us. In exchange, you keep your sovereignty, your prosperity, your survival. Or you continue your decline. And we let it proceed. A council divided. The chamber exploded into debate. Some species begged to accept immediately. Others accused Cade of galactic tyranny. But none, not even Verdos, could deny the unspoken truth. The council was no longer in control of its fate. And as chaos swirled, Director Cade simply stood, silent, watching. Waiting. Because he knew. The empty seat was never empty. High Council Chamber, Centauri Prime. Moments later. The chamber was in chaos. The ancient spiral of diplomacy, the polished floors that once reflected order and tradition, now mirrored the fracturing alliances, the fear bleeding through every species represented. Heated arguments flared between old rivals and former allies alike. Voices rose in dozens of languages, overlapping, competing, drowning one another out. And at the heart of it all, Director Elias Cade stood unmoving, hands clasped behind his back, like a surgeon calmly observing a terminal patient fight for breath. The council was unraveling before his eyes. It was, as his own psychological warfare division would call it, controlled collapse. The subtle trap. CRK of the Zilnari Confederacy, one of the few remaining voices of reason, struggled to cut through the chaos. Order. Order. His metallic translator clicked furiously, amplifying his shrill cries. We must deliberate. This This is unprecedented. Verdos, his rival from the Valithi syndicate, hissed venomously. Deliberate. On terms of surrender? Citrarca's gills fluttered. Survival is not surrender. Easy for you to say. Your fleets already crumble. My people still have strength. Strength that will be crushed like the rest if you continue your prideful blindness. Cade's voice sliced through their bickering like a precision beam. Enough. Instantly, the voices fell silent again. Not because of the volume but because of the sheer presence he projected. You mistake the situation, Cade said coolly, his eyes flicking between Verdos and Seer. This is not conquest. This is not vengeance. This is simple math. You created a council meant to foster peace, but it instead became a den of political parasites. He allowed a pause for effect. We have no interest in your traditions. We offer stability. Something you have proven yourselves incapable of maintaining. The seeds of doubt. A new voice emerged from the inner ring, a delegation long considered minor, the Yelthari matrons. Their elders spoke softly, yet every syllable struck with unsettling clarity. And if we accept your terms, Director Cade, what becomes of us? Cade nodded respectfully toward the ancient Yelthari. You continue your existence. You retain control over your worlds, your cultures, your internal governance. The Yelthari narrowed her luminous eyes. And if we refuse? Cade smiled faintly. You won't. That answer was not arrogance, it was prophecy. Because the data streams still running through the Council's private channels showed, in real time, entire regions already falling apart. The Council's authority wasn't simply being challenged, it was being erased piece by piece without a single battle launched. The Silent Directorate. What chilled many even more than Cade's proposals were the implications behind his calm demeanor. The Terran Directorate was not just militarily superior, it had mastered asymmetric control at scales no civilization had prepared for. Information infiltration. Psychological destabilization. Economic pressure points. Subversion without open war. Where the Council still measured power in fleet tonnage and planetary shields, Earth had moved far beyond, waging an invisible campaign of influence, domination, and quiet puppeteering. And worst of all, they had done it while hidden. 4-7 cycles. The final gambit. Verdos, face pale, attempted one last, desperate move. You humans, you have become tyrants under a mask of civility. But not all species will bend so easily. He gestured toward a small cluster of his own military attaches, quietly preparing coded transmissions. A final call for reinforcements. A final chance to resist. Cade watched them calmly. I would advise against that, Counselor. You presume to threaten me on my own world? Not a threat, Cade said, a reality. As if on cue, the chamber's overhead screens shifted. Live feeds displayed Valithi Syndicate ships, hundreds of them, floating helplessly in orbit. Engines disabled. Weapon systems locked. Crew frozen, unresponsive. The override had already occurred. Cade's expression never shifted. Your communications arrays were compromised 3 cycles ago. Verdos collapsed into his seat. Turning of the tide. Now it was Grand Marshal Tivik who spoke, slowly, his voice stripped of pride. You built this directorate, even as we mocked you. Cade's tone softened slightly, almost respectful. Yes. We built it because you forced us to. Tivik nodded grimly. Perhaps your species understands something ours does not. Cade inclined his head. We understand that unity is not maintained by endless councils. It is maintained by ensuring no one benefits from chaos. The unveiling of Earth's true scale. But Cade wasn't finished yet. To cement the moment, to drive the dagger fully into the Council's heart, he triggered one final data feed. Across the main chamber, holographic projections lit up, showing maps of entire galactic sectors. The human expansion wasn't limited to old Earth territories. Entire sectors outside Council jurisdiction. Dozens of newly settled star systems. Megastructures in construction around supermassive stars. Artificial wormhole networks bypassing Council hyperspace lanes entirely. And then the most staggering image of all appeared, the Sol core megastructure. A Dyson swarm, thousands of solar harvesters encircling Earth's own sun. An energy reserve greater than the entire Council's combined output. No one spoke. No one could. The scale of it was beyond comprehension. The choice. Director Cade folded his hands behind his back. You must understand, we did not build all this because we sought your destruction. His voice was steady. Heavy. We built it because we knew you would eventually force us to choose. Submission or independence. He let the words hang. And we chose. A warning for the future. At last, SCI-FI found the courage to speak again, his voice like dry leaves in wind. And what if one day we try again? What if others rise after us to challenge your directorate? Cade's answer came instantly. Then they will face what you now witness. And they too will tremble. The vote. The chamber dimmed. The final vote began. One by one, species reluctantly, silently, pressed their response nodes. Accept. 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 Some did so out of fear. Some out of exhausted pragmatism. And some, quietly, out of a dark admiration. Even Verdos had bowed, submitted. The Terran Directorate ascends. As the final vote confirmed the transfer of power, Cade spoke one last time. Know this, your civilizations will thrive under our guidance. Your people will prosper. But if you ever forget again, if you dare once more to corner the species you called impulsive. His eyes locked on each of them in turn. You will not get a second warning. And then, without any ceremony, Director Elias Cade turned and walked toward the chamber doors. Behind him, the empty seat remained. No longer empty because Earth had vanished, but empty because Earth had risen above it. Council Grand Chamber, 3 days later. The chamber felt different now. The old banners of the Galactic Council still hung from the spiral arches, but everyone knew they were relics, symbols of a bygone order. At the center of the chamber, where the Council seal once hovered, now floated a new emblem, the crest of the Terran Directorate. Slick, minimal, ruthlessly elegant. It depicted no species, no world, no ancient alliances, only a single star encircled by 12 concentric rings. A reminder of unity enforced by power, not fragile diplomacy. And presiding over this first Directorate Assembly, Director Elias Cade stood once again. Not as a petitioner. Not as an outsider. As the axis upon which the galaxy now turned. The new order. One by one the delegations were called forward. Each ambassador, once proud representatives of autonomous star-faring empires, now swore alignment to the Directorate's Charter of Stability. Some with bitterness still hiding behind formal oaths. Some with reluctant relief. Others with something far more dangerous, respect. The Valyrian High Speaker Ilvac bowed his ridged head as he finalized the charter signature. We never thought it would end like this. It hasn't ended, High Speaker, Cade replied, voice even. This is a beginning. Ilvac studied him for a long moment. Will the Directorate rule as the Council once did? Corrupt, blind, bloated with its own importance. Cade didn't flinch. No. We've learned from your mistakes. Rule is not our purpose. Stability is. The unseen hand. Throughout the galaxy, Cade's words were already being felt. Pirate armadas that once preyed on neutral shipping routes had vanished, their fleets dismantled before they even realized they'd been targeted. Warlords who ruled fringe systems found their own military leaders quietly replaced by Directorate-controlled operatives. Technological secrets once hoarded by Council elite were redistributed to the core worlds, accelerating medicine, food production, and population stability. But beneath all of this visible transformation lay something far more insidious, and far more brilliant. The network. A hyper-intelligent AI lattice, constructed in secret across Directorate space during the years of exile, monitored every transaction, every fleet movement, every data stream. Not oppressive like Council surveillance. Subtler. Preventative. Decentralized. Conflict didn't arise because conflict had nowhere to grow. Humanity had finally weaponized peace itself. The Councilors' quiet realization. In their private chambers that evening, old Council members whispered amongst themselves. Have we simply traded one form of domination for another? Yes, another replied bitterly, but this one is functional. Functional isn't freedom. Freedom brought us to ruin. And what of Earth? One finally asked. Silence followed. Because in truth no one truly knew anymore. The hidden core. On the far edge of Director-controlled space, beyond Council reach, Earth itself had transformed into something the galaxy no longer fully understood. The sole core megastructure continued to expand. Artificial moons orbited the sun, harvesting its energy. Megacities spanned continents, built vertically into the upper atmosphere. Off-world shipyards constructed vessels not for conquest, but for far more ambitious ventures, deep intergalactic exploration. Yet few outsiders were allowed to visit Earth directly. Even the Directorate's most loyal allies were kept at arm's length from humanity's original cradle. The conversation beneath the ice. Deep within one of those megastructures, in a hidden chamber beneath Antarctica's reconstructed ice cap, Cade met with his true inner circle. Not the Directorate Assembly. Not the regional governors. The real architects, scientists, engineers, strategists, a council of ghosts long erased from public record. It's begun, Cade said, reviewing the data feeds. Stability across all sectors is rising. Trade has surpassed projections. Insurrections neutralized before ignition. One of the inner circle members, a woman known only as Dr. Zhang, leaned forward. And the old council? Fragmented, distracted, disarmed. Then the directorate holds director. Cade nodded, but his gaze was distant. For now. The greater threat. Zhang studied him. You're still concerned. I always am. He activated a secure projection, a map far beyond the galaxy the council once ruled. Blips lit up. Unknown signatures. Massive energy readings. Entities far older than any race in the council. The ancients. My concern, Cade whispered, is not the council. It never was. They were children wielding sharp sticks. He zoomed in on one blip pulsing ominously at the edge of known space. The true game lies beyond. A warning to the galaxy. Weeks later, Director Cade stood once more before the Directorate Assembly as they prepared to address the wider galaxy officially for the first time. He spoke not only to those in the chamber, but to billions across every star system now watching. We offer peace. His voice was calm but absolute. We offer order. The starfield behind him displayed the vast spread of human expansion. But know this, if you seek war, if you seek conquest, if you seek to challenge what we've built. His eyes hardened, voice tightening like a blade drawn from its sheath. We will not negotiate. We will not warn you again. And you will not get a second chance. The seat no longer empty. And so, the seat once left empty for Earth had not merely been filled. It had been redefined. Not as one voice among many, but as the center of a new galactic reality. The Directorate ruled. The Council trembled. And the stars bore witness. The end. Rocket subscribe message for your channel. If you enjoyed this galactic HFY epic, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more human versus alien power struggles, unstoppable Terran empires, and galactic council meltdowns. Every week, we dive deep into these ultimate sci-fi tales where humanity rises far beyond what the galaxy ever expected. Don't forget to like, share, and comment your favorite moment, and stay tuned because the next story might just shatter the stars. Milky Way.